Do you like catching movies in the theaters? Check out MoviePass, where you can see a movie every single day for as low as $30 a month. And IAYTD has the hookup, where you can click the link in the description box below to try MoviePass for 2 weeks before committing to it. Only available in the United States currently, but check out the website for a full list of participating movie theaters near you. Hello and welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic. Today we're talking about Netflix. Usually I talk about movies or games or comic books, but today we're talking about television. So we are going to talk about my 5 favorite things on Netflix. And these are TV shows. So I'm going to talk about my 5 that you need to watch, and then I want you to contribute. So I want to know, what TV shows are you currently watching? What do you think people need to see? What shows were you disappointed by? So I want you to sound off in the comments what you're watching and what other people should watch. So as a disclaimer, Netflix changes what's showing often. So if you're not watching this video when it's released, some of these shows may not be streaming anymore. Also, it differs from country to country. So in the US, right now, these are 5 shows that you can watch, but I can't guarantee that wherever and whenever you're watching, this is still true. So I want to start off with the TV show Scrubs. Scrubs aired a while ago, and I didn't really watch it until it was all on Netflix and I could watch it all at once. But I watched it at a time when I was in college, and kind of you're growing up and finding out who you are, and you're kind of going through that same process that the people on the show are going through. So basically follows 3 young doctors trying to become doctors, but also struggling with growing up and relationships, and kind of walking that fine line between having fun and being a serious doctor. Now, why I love Scrubs. It is hilarious, yet it's also really touching. And you'll notice that most of the shows on this list kind of walk that balance. That I'll be laughing my ass off, something hilarious and crazy, but then I'll just be bawling my eyes out the next scene. That a lot happens in the hospital and a lot of people aren't going to make it, but then there's a lot of hilarious things that happen. Doctors just kind of living their lives and growing up, like I said. And it's just a really interesting balance of seeing both sides of these characters' lives. Now, as a warning, if you want to watch Scrubs, the last season is absolute trash. Okay? There were a bunch of seasons, and then they had a beautiful series finale. Okay, it should have ended. But what happened is, I guess, it got picked up by another network, like they wanted to continue it, but some of the cast left. So there's a last season, which is basically like a spin-off. Okay, it's like the doctors are now teachers, and there's all these new people, and it doesn't work. And then it was canceled. So there's just one season that's really weird at the very end. So when you get to that point, just remember that was the series finale we just watched, and the rest of this is like concept footage for like a spin-off that never really happened, because it's like a season and it doesn't really work. But just hold on to that memory of that beautiful series finale that you got, but the show just keeps going. So you probably could just stop watching, but you're gonna have a hard time just knowing there's another season, and you probably may not believe me. You're like, it can't be that bad, but it is. So if you can hold yourself back, don't watch the last season. Save yourself. Next up, we have the show House MD. This is another show that finished before I ever watched it, right? So I only maybe a couple months ago went back and watched House. I never really got into it. I never watched it at all when it was kind of popular back in the day. But now I sat down, watched it, and it was fantastic. Much like Scrubs, House is a hospital show, but also really focuses on these people outside of the hospital. But Scrubs is a half-hour comedy. House is an hour-long drama. And House is long. I think it's like 8 seasons. So it's a big commitment, but it's worth it. And basically, if you haven't seen it, Gregory House is a doctor, and he's kind of this genius, but he's really antisocial and mean and just horrible to people, but he always gets the job done. So it's fascinating to watch, and each week it's kind of this mysterious illness that they have to figure out, and how do they cure it. It's one of those shows, but it's mixed in with this character that he's got his own afflictions and addictions and things that are going on in his life, and so that's what you love to watch. This guy's saving lives but destroying his own, and it's fascinating and a great character study and excellent performances. And the show also does something really great, which it's 8 seasons, But about, at multiple points in the show, they kind of cycle in new characters, right? So they say, like, here's the new team. And they do a brilliant job of making this make sense. That these are kind of interns that are kind of on his team, or they're new doctors. But the other doctors aren't gone. So they don't lose these past people, but they actually get promoted. So they end up in other positions. They're still in the hospital. It works like real life would. That they're not going to stay an intern for 8 years. That they kind of move up, and they're still kind of supporting characters while these new people get a little more attention, and then they move up. So it does that really well, which a lot of series, they bring in a new batch of people, and it's death for the show, much like Scrubs was. So if you like the idea of each week, there's kind of a new mystery illness and how do they handle it, but you also want something kind of about a character that's really hard to root for, but they're dark and complicated, and you want something that's a little more interesting, then House might be the show for you. So if you're going to talk about characters that are dark and interesting and sometimes hard to root for, you have to talk about Breaking Bad. Now, Breaking Bad is only 5 seasons, and they did the perfect thing by ending on top. Instead of going 6, 7, 8 seasons and having seasons that are filler, they end exactly when they meant to. There's not a lot of filler. There's some episodes that people don't like. But overall, Breaking Bad is perfect in how long it lasts. It is an hour long, but it's only 5 seasons, very manageable. Now, if you don't know anything about Breaking Bad, and that's probably a very small number of you, it's basically a high school chemistry teacher who finds out he has cancer, but is too broke to go through the treatments, so he starts creating and distributing meth in New Mexico. So it's basically the story of this teacher that kind of has to do kind of horrible things to pay for this cancer treatment, but eventually he becomes kind of higher and higher in this like hierarchy of meth, and so he becomes kind of the biggest drug dealer in the area. So there are times when it's really hard to root for this character, but it's so fascinating and so interesting that you can't help but just keep following. And knowing that it's only 5 seasons, it's not a very long adventure, but it's one that you need to go on. Breaking Bad has some great performances, has a lot of really great end of the episode twists and turns and reveals, and it's just one of the most perfect shows that I've ever seen. So if you've somehow missed Breaking Bad, this can be the moment. As soon as this video's over, you can go start watching it right now. And trust me, you're going to love it. Now let's shift gears. We did some really kind of some darker shows, but now let's do something a little lighter. So I'm going to talk about the cartoon Futurama. Now, I never really watched The Simpsons. Okay, I still haven't. It's almost as old as I am, but I've just never watched it. So when Futurama first came out and Matt Groening kind of was doing the art and it looked very similar, I just wasn't interested. But a couple years ago, I think it was when Futurama was canceled, then it came back. I think that's when I was like, there must be something about this show if people fought for it so hard to come back. So I started watching it. And Futurama, even though it's a cartoon, it's not a cartoon aimed at kids, but it's also not a cartoon that goes so far the extreme like South Park or Family Guy, where it's kind of like shock value and like, what can we do? It's clever and witty and smart. And it is a little long because it kind of lasted a while, and then there were a couple movies that came out, and then a couple more seasons. But it's half an hour, and it's fun, and it's just really smart. That it's this man that basically falls into a cryo chamber and is frozen for 1,000 years. So he wakes up, and now everyone that he knows is dead. The world is different. There's spaceships going everywhere, and he kind of joins this delivery service and goes on these adventures and kind of rediscovers the planet. And it's funny, but it's also really touching that you become really connected to these characters, even though you might not think you would. This woman that's a Cyclops, you all of a sudden like really relate to. And it just does it really well. And there's episodes that just had me bawling. There's one about a dog. And if you've seen Futurama, you know this episode. And every time I see it, I just turn into waterworks. That it's just a beautiful show. And people dismiss it. They say, no, like I don't like that. But just give it a try. Watch a good couple episodes. Really give it a chance. Because I think Futurama is a brilliant show and one that you need to give a shot. Lastly, I'm going to bring up a show that I don't think many of you have seen. And that's a Netflix exclusive called Derek. And Derek stars Ricky Gervais, who's a comedian from the UK. But he doesn't play characters like he usually plays. He's playing a caregiver in an elderly home facility. And it's kind of believed that he has autism, but it never really makes kind of a big deal about that. It never really talks about that. You just get to know him. And it's a comedy. It's a half-hour show. It's like 23 minutes or whatever. It's really funny. It's British humor, so some of you might not feel that as much. I had to turn on the subtitles because sometimes they talk really fast and they're slang that here in the States I don't know what that means. So I had to turn on the subtitles to get the full effect. So it's a comedy, but it's also really touching. And there is a lot of depth that this guy sees the world in a way that we don't. And after watching Derek, I wish that there were more people like him in the real world. And when I get down about something or whatever, I watch Derek. Because it reminds me that there might be people out there like that, and that just makes me happier. That this show is brilliant. It's creative, it's unique, there's nothing really like it, and it's completely unexpected. You think it's going to be a 20-minute British comedy, you're like, I don't expect anything. But then it has some of the greatest acting I've seen in a long time from Ricky Gervais. It's not in your face. It's subtle, and it's stuff that you just kind of pick up on, but it's brilliant. And it's only 2 seasons and a couple like special episodes, but it's not a huge time commitment. So give it a shot. I think you're really going to like Derek, especially if you want something different. If you just watched a 7-season show and you're like, I just need something to kind of cleanse my palate, try Derek. Some of you won't like it. Some of you will become your favorite TV show. So, those are the 5 shows that I think you need to watch. There's plenty of other great shows on Netflix. Daredevil, I think people will love. Even people that don't love Marvel stuff. They don't watch any of the Avengers stuff, but they love Daredevil because they're able to watch without knowing all this other stuff. Friends, if you're looking for kind of a classic comedy, Friends will not fail. So there's a lot of great shows. But what else do you think people need to watch? What are you binging right now? I'm halfway through whatever. Like right now I'm watching Scandal because everyone where I work talks about Scandal. So I'm watching that. What are you watching? And what do you think people really need to give a shot? What do you think people aren't watching? What do you think is flying under the radar? And like, hey everyone, you need to watch this. So tell me in the comments, let me know if you like any of these 5 shows, if you can vouch for them. If you like Derek, comment below and be like, Derek is awesome. If you disagree, tell me that too. That's fine, we all have different tastes. So use the comments below, let's talk about Netflix, and thanks for watching.